It started like any other morning. Students laughing, lockers slamming, the hum of teenage life echoing through the halls. But within 10 minutes, everything changed. A calm-faced 15-year-old reached into his backpack and pulled out horror. By 8 a.m., 2 were dead, dozens injured, and a quiet Kentucky town would never be the same. This is not just a story about a school shooting. It's about lives stolen, bravery born in chaos, and a community forced to ask, how did we not see this coming? Before the headlines, before the sirens, and before the silence that fell like a shroud over a Kentucky town, there was just another morning in Benton, a town where life is slow, peaceful, and familiar, where kids grow up playing baseball in dusty fields, families gather in church pews every Sunday, and everyone waves when they pass by on the road. Nestled in the western corner of the state, Benton is the kind of town where the seasons mark time, not traffic, not chaos. It's where high school football games bring the whole community together on Friday nights, where graduation day is a family event and the future feels bright and within reach for every teenager who walks the halls of Marshall County High School. To outsiders, it might seem like just another quiet dot on the map, but to the people who live here, Benton is home, safe, predictable, steady. But on January 23, 2018, everything changed in 10 minutes. The heart of the community, its children, were suddenly violently targeted, and the echoes of that morning still ripple through the lives of those who lived it. January 23, 2018, a Tuesday like any other. The temperature in Benton hovered just above freezing as students at Marshall County High School shuffled in, shaking off the morning chill. Some wore their team jackets, others headphones, already halfway lost in the songs of their day. It was routine. It was normal. By 7:30 a.m., the halls were alive, voices echoing off lockers, students talking about homework, part-time jobs, and weekend plans. In the Commons area, groups gathered to catch up before class. Some were grabbing breakfast from the cafeteria. Some joked around, and some stood alone, quietly observing. Among them was a 15-year-old sophomore named Gabriel Ross Parker, a face no one suspected, a quiet student who had just blended into the background for most of his life. But on this morning, he had made a devastating choice. Unbeknownst to anyone around him, Parker had slipped a .22 caliber Ruger pistol into his backpack. The gun, taken from his stepfather's bedroom, sat zipped in next to notebooks and textbooks, and it would take only seconds for it to change lives forever. At precisely 7:57 a.m., Parker walked into the Commons area. Without a word, without warning, he raised the gun and opened fire. It took only a moment. Screams filled the air. The crack of bullets echoed through the brick walls. Students dropped their books and ran. Others froze in place, paralyzed by the unimaginable. A wave of chaos rippled outward. Some rushed to help. Others ran for their lives. In the span of just 10 minutes, Parker fired 16 rounds. 2 students were killed, 14 others were shot, and countless more were emotionally scarred, carrying wounds no doctor could ever fully treat. Teachers rushed to barricade classrooms. Some students dialed 911 while hiding behind vending machines and lockers. Others tried desperately to tend to the wounded. The building, once filled with ordinary teenage noise, now pulsed with terror and confusion. Outside, the first responders hadn't even had their morning coffee, but by 8:06 a.m., police had Parker in custody. He had fled the school and was arrested without incident on a nearby road. Just minutes after the horror began, it was over, but the consequences would last a lifetime.
It was the heartbreaking scene that unfolded in western Kentucky this morning. 14 students were shot, 5 more injured before their day at Marshall County High School even began. 2 of them, a 15-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy, have died. And a 15-year-old boy, the suspect, is now charged in their murders, arrested at the school without incident. The scene unfolded at the school near Benton, Kentucky. That's in Marshall County, about 3.5 hours just west of Louisville. At a news conference today, Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin called today's events a pure tragedy.
By 8:06 a.m., Gabriel Parker was in custody. The shots had stopped, but the echoes of violence still rang in every hallway, every scream, every frantic breath. The nightmare wasn't over. It had just changed form. Outside the school, a swarm of red and blue lights flooded the streets. Ambulances pulled up beside police cruisers. Officers sprinted toward the entrance with guns drawn, unsure if the threat had truly passed. Paramedics rushed in with stretchers. Chaos had taken hold. Inside, it was a war zone. Blood streaked the floors. Backpacks lay scattered. The injured cried out from behind overturned tables and near the water fountains. Some students had tried to run. Others had tried to help. Many just froze. The school, once a place of learning, had become unrecognizable. Among the first responders was Marshall County Sheriff Kevin Byers, a man deeply rooted in the community. He later described the scene as pure horror, but also spoke of how students and staff displayed remarkable courage under impossible circumstances. Teachers emerged from locked classrooms, some carrying injured students, others gripping radios and calling in head counts. In one hallway, a teacher shielded crying children with her own body, telling them to close their eyes and pray.
This is a wound that is going to take a long time to heal, and for some in this community will never fully heal. That is going to take a process of time and respect.
Emergency medical teams triaged the wounded right there in the halls, applying tourniquets made from belts, jackets, and shoelaces. Those most critically injured, like Preston Cope, were loaded onto stretchers and rushed to waiting helicopters and ambulances. Time was precious. Outside, hundreds of parents gathered behind police lines, hearts racing, eyes scanning the chaos for their children. Some received quick reunions, others waited hours, and some would never see their child alive again.
Parents say they only realized what had happened once their kids told them.
Eric said that there was a shooting. One of his friends had gotten shot in the leg and was running down the road. He wasn't inside. My other son was inside.
And it took a while to hear from him, but even that was bittersweet.
As soon as I got confirmation that he was okay, I kind of just started praying for everyone else.
Word spread quickly. By 9 a.m., regional news had broken the story. Local broadcasters cut into morning programming with urgent updates. And within the hour, national headlines began flashing the words, "School shooting in Kentucky." It was already the 11th school shooting of 2018, just 3 weeks into the year. At hospitals across the region, Marshall County Hospital, Vanderbilt in Nashville, Lourdes in Paducah, doctors and trauma teams prepared for mass casualties.
Doctors at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville say the ages of the injured students they admitted ranged from 15 to 18.
They say they had 3 victims with gunshot wounds to the head, one of whom did not survive. One student was shot in the arm, while another had to undergo surgery for gunshots to the chest and abdomen. That student is now in ICU, and doctors say they expect him, as well as the other students who were injured, to survive. Doctors say they're never prepared for the emotional toll of mass shootings, especially when young people are involved.
What we have to do is we have to cut our emotions off when we're trying to save somebody's life. But you can't hold that within yourself for a long period of time. And we've learned that we have to debrief and discuss this amongst ourselves because we too suffer from this. But our job is to keep people alive.
Families flooded ER waiting rooms. Names were called. Some were crossed off the list. 2 were not. Bailey Holt had died at the scene. Her mother, Secret Holt, learned the news after her daughter didn't answer that final phone call. Her voice would later crack in televised interviews as she recalled how Bailey's phone rang again and again in those haunting minutes, never to be answered.
In the background, and she didn't say anything.
15-year-old Bailey Holt never made it home from school.
It's just so hard to believe that somebody in a split second could take 2 lives and injure so many in just a short amount of time. And can't get it back.
Her mother describes the last time she heard from her daughter. She says Bailey called home Tuesday morning as she was dying on the floor.
And I tried to call her name over and over and she never responded. So we rushed to the high school and they wouldn't let us get through.
Preston Cope died at the hospital. His father, Brian Cope, had spoken to him minutes earlier that morning about baseball practice. His son's final words to a friend had been, "Run." That single word became a symbol of selfless warning, of a life cut short trying to protect others. By midday, grief counselors were arriving in Benton. The school was closed indefinitely. Vigils were being organized, churches opened their doors, and the town began its painful descent into mourning. In the hours following the shooting, Marshall County and Kentucky State Police began the long, grim task of investigating the how and why behind the unthinkable. The suspect, 15-year-old Gabriel Ross Parker, had been arrested just minutes after the attack. Now, it was time to understand him. Parker was taken into custody without incident. He reportedly showed no emotion, no signs of remorse. As he sat in an interrogation room at the sheriff's department, the gravity of what he had done hadn't yet sunk in. Or maybe he had already accepted it. Police recovered the .22 caliber Ruger pistol he used, along with a knife he carried in his backpack, perhaps intended for a second phase of violence. They also seized Parker's journals, school notebooks, and his personal computer. What they found painted a chilling portrait. In his journals, Parker described feeling disconnected from humanity. He spoke about nihilism, the belief that life was meaningless. He wrote about experimenting with his ability to care, and how he wanted to see what it felt like to kill people. There was no manifesto, no political message, just raw personal darkness. In one disturbing passage, Parker reportedly wrote, "I truly have none of the qualities that make someone good. I am selfish, I am lazy, I am uncaring. I've hurt people before, and I'll do it again." The FBI and Kentucky State Police conducted a forensic investigation of his online activity. They found that Parker had been reading about other school shootings, particularly Columbine and Sandy Hook. He had studied them not with sympathy, but as case studies. He wanted to understand how they were carried out. And then, he wanted to try it himself. A psychological evaluation was ordered. Multiple mental health professionals assessed Parker over the months that followed. They confirmed that he had no severe mental illness that would qualify for an insanity defense. He was intelligent, aware, and, most importantly, competent to stand trial. Meanwhile, the families of the victims and the broader community began their slow, painful journey through the court process. Parker was charged with 2 counts of murder and 14 counts of first-degree assault. The question soon became, should a 15-year-old be tried as an adult? In March 2018, a judge ruled that Parker would indeed be tried as an adult due to the severity and planning of his crime. The ruling sparked some debate, but most in the community agreed. This was not a case of a troubled kid who snapped. This was calculated, cold, intentional. Parker entered a not guilty plea. The court proceedings would stretch for nearly 4 years, marked by delays, appeals, and countless emotional moments for the families involved. Some victims' parents attended every hearing, seeking justice in person, no matter how painful. Finally, in April 2020, 2 years after the shooting, Gabriel Parker changed his plea. He pled guilty to all charges. His voice was quiet in the courtroom as he admitted to killing Bailey Holt and Preston Cope and injuring 14 others. Some family members sobbed openly. Others stared at him in silence.
Tonight, relief for families demanding justice. The teen suspect in the deadly Marshall County High School shooting pled guilty today. News Channel 5's Matthew Torres tuned in for the virtual hearing the moment he admitted to killing students.
Well, Rory, for more than 2 years, loved ones say all they wanted was for Gabriel Parker to say he was guilty. And today they got their wish when the now 18-year-old inmate pled guilty to all 16 charges, including 2 counts of murder for the deaths of Bailey Holt and Preston Cope. Parker walked into Marshall County High School in January 2018 and opened fire, injuring many students as well. 6 of his 14 first-degree assault charges were dropped to second degree as part of the plea deal. He's now facing life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. The Commonwealth's attorney says Cope and Holt's family are relieved and agreed to the plea. Tonight, Holt's aunt tells me the hearing was a small victory, avoiding having to relive the memories in the trial.
This small miracle is just a small step for us to heal. There will never be closure, but like I said, this is something that we've been praying about, and it just came to us, and we are so grateful. grateful for that.
Even though it's 20 years from now, she says the family plans to be at each parole hearing to make sure he stays behind bars. The sentencing date is scheduled for June 21st, and we can hear from families and victims then. Reporting at the 5 Alert Center tonight, I'm Matthew Torres, News Channel 5.
At sentencing, emotional testimony poured in from survivors, parents, teachers, and emergency responders. They spoke of trauma that still lingered, of birthdays never celebrated, of young lives broken by a moment of senseless violence. Bailey's mother described how she still sets an empty plate at the table. Preston's father said his son's glove still sits on the front seat of his truck. In June 2020, Parker was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison, plus 70 years, 1 for each additional victim. He will be eligible for parole in 20 years due to Kentucky law concerning juvenile offenders. For many in the courtroom, that detail felt like a final insult.
Raw emotions in court as families held nothing back when addressing the teen who killed 2 students in a Kentucky school shooting. News Channel 5's Matthew Torres brings us their words as 18-year-old Gabriel Parker was sentenced to life in prison today.
It was in January 2018 when 2 students died and several others had to be flown here to Vanderbilt after a school shooting in Kentucky. More than 2 years later, the teen gunman is finally sentenced.
She was the most precious, beautiful, and selfless soul on this earth, and you took her from us.
There were no mincing words when addressing the gunman who killed her 15-year-old daughter, Bailey Holt. Standing next to her husband, Secret Holt also shared harsh words for his parents.
Their parenting skills are obviously demented. Then have raised nothing but a worthless demon.
Close to 10 people read statements in front of 18-year-old Gabriel Parker right before the judge handed down 2 life sentences with the possibility of parole after 20 years. In April, he admitted to shooting and killing Bailey and Preston Cope and injuring 14 others at Marshall County High School in 2018.
The thing we missed about Preston is watching him grow up to be the fine young man that he would have become.
The wounds are still fresh for Preston's family, who said he had a promising future.
I don't see good when I look at Gay Parker. He has no remorse and no conscience. I see evil, pure evil.
Since the case never reached trial, families and the community avoided reliving the traumatizing details. But Commonwealth's attorney Dennis Faust read a transcript of what Gabe said during an interview with officials.
Ask why his response. I don't really know. I just kind of felt like it, I guess.
It hinted he viewed the shooting as an experiment.
I was interested to see how things would happen, so I suppose in a way just out of curiosity of what would go on. How would people react? I've been curious about prison. You hear stuff, but you never know what it's really like.
Family and friends vow they'll appear at each parole hearing, making sure he'll stay behind bars forever.
You're a sorry, low-life demon, piece of garbage, and I can't stand the sight of you, and you will never see the light of day again, and for that I'm grateful.
Family and friends continue to remember Bailey Holt and Preston Cope. Most recently, just last month, the school remembered them at the high school graduation. They would have graduated this year. Reporting in Nashville, Matthew Torres, News Channel 5.
Gabriel Parker never spoke today, but his attorney did. His attorney says Parker is not evil and was a child who horribly lost his way.
There were no cameras in the courtroom, but the pain was unmistakable. One parent later told reporters, "It doesn't feel like justice, but it's all we get." After the sentencing, the prosecutor called the case a tragedy without explanation. And in truth, that may be the most accurate way to describe it. There was no clear motive, no warning signs loud enough to stop it, just a quiet teenager who carried darkness and acted on it. The story of Marshall County is not just about tragedy, it's about the strength of a small town that refused to be broken. It's about students who became survivors, parents who became advocates, and a community that still stands together, stronger than ever. If this story moved you, if you believe these stories deserve to be told and remembered, please take a moment to like this video. It helps more people find and understand what really happened here. Share this story with someone, because behind every headline is a human life, a mother, a father, a best friend, a dream interrupted. And if you want to see more real stories, stories that matter, that make us think, and hopefully help us grow, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to tell. Thank you for watching. And to the people of Marshall County, we remember,